with Venus Wisdom on a Venus Day, and this is the episode of Venus Ingress into Pisces. So where I am, Venus just entered 0 degrees Pisces today, and I want to take a look at the general idea of Venus in Pisces, which is going to be the first part of this video, and then in the second I'm going to go over the passage of Venus. I'm going to animate the chart and I'm going to go over the passage of Venus in Pisces for as long as it is in Pisces. So, general meaning of Venus in Pisces, whether you have it in your natal chart. I'm going to join the archetype of Pisces and the archetype of Venus. So you might experience some of it and you might experience it completely differently. If Venus, let's say, is squaring your Pluto, then you will have a completely different experience when, for example, you just have a Venus trine in Jupiter, when Venus is in Pisces and Jupiter, I don't know, is in Cancer. So generally, Venus is about joining things together, connecting things. It is a benefic, so it is involved with things that are growing, including tumors, by the way. Yeah, so benefics are they just grow stuff. Um, Venus rules naturally Taurus and Libra, which is Libra is air sign and Taurus is earth sign, and she is exalted in Pisces. The colors for Venus are green, basically for the rejuvenation and the connection, or the healthy heart chakra, if you want to address that in this way. Um, and so malachite is also Venusian crystal. If you're working with crystal and you find a way to do it ethically sourced, and you know that, it's great. Um, she's often been mistaken with Mercury esoterically. Um, Although Mercury is about the agreements part of relationship and the dissecting of agreements, so contracts. Venus is about the connection. How do you come together? Venus is also your love language, your values. It can also be the sister of a person in the chart, so it's planetary ruler of sisters, and women, and that can be any woman. Okay, for example, if you had aspects from Venus to Saturn, this might signify all the women in your life. Okay, and for me, even when Venus is not in a Saturn ruled sign, have Venus opposition Saturn, and oftentimes when that would be triggered in the chart, I would meet older women, and that would be the signification of the transit to my Venus. Um, so, Venus is also your values. And that can be the value you hold against your, like your self value, but not necessarily. It can be what you hold as what is important to you. It also, because of the value connection, can be your valuables. Okay, what your valuables in spirit and in matter, and this is how Venus get a material signification of your possessions, okay, or your belongings. Um, so Venus can signify the type of wealth or the type of when you buy things, what you spend on, what you hold as valuable, or what gift would you like to receive from people, then we would look also at your Venus. If I want to know what gift do I want to buy you for your birthday, for example, then I would look to your Venus and see what things would a person with this Venus appreciate. Venus in body, we have it rules Libra and Taurus, and so that would be the throat chakra for Taurus, and throat and the neck, and the kidneys for Libra, or the lower back for Libra. Um, Venus is also the voice, So voicing your voice, it can be singing, if it's artistic expression, but it also means voicing your voice or speaking your value. Okay. So this is for Venus. Pisces. And Pisces, the archetype is of a sign, of course, so it's not a planet. The planet ruling Pisces traditionally is Jupiter, which rules seed and also semen, and therefore rules both children and the bringers of children. Okay, so the father of the child, or the bringer of the semen. Jupiter is also benefic, so it rules things that grow. It also rules Sagittarius, and it rules philosophy and expansion. Okay, while Saturn is also a teacher, Saturn rules the contraction part of learning. That is dedication, that is getting enough rest, that is like climbing the mountain, doing it over, or tending to it, or pushing your boundaries when you need to and stopping when you need to. Jupiter is the optimistic, the expansive, with with an A. The sense of curiosity, okay, the childish curiosity, the boundless expression. It's the instinct to do good, okay, regardless of the reality of things. Jupiter, again, is also benefic, so it rules things that grow, as well as tumors. Okay. Um, for Pisces, we also have a modern ruler, and I know it is some astrologers do not work with modern rulers at all. Some do not work with traditional rulers. I love to pay attention to both. And Neptune is the dissolution of boundaries. Neptune rules viruses. Neptune also rules things that go viral. Okay, so Neptune Mercury can be a message that goes viral on social media, those videos that are viral. Neptune rules the great vast. If you think about Poseidon, or the god of the ocean. Okay, it's not the sea, but the ocean, which is also the archetype of Pisces. It's the blending of things, the solution of boundaries, and therefore it is also one of the channeling planets. If you go to channeling or tweeting by dissolving the boundaries between the self and that which you desire, if it's manifestation, so it's also manifesting planet together with Jupiter. Jupiter is more about belief and believing that you already have it. Neptune is about dissolving the boundaries between you and that which you desire. Okay? Um, and therefore, it can also be dissolving the boundaries between you and the sense of otherness, to complete merging or blending. So being permeable to the other allows you to channel a lot of things. Okay, then you would need to set, to put up the boundaries when it's needed. Um, yeah, and um, both Jupiter and Neptune relate to creativity, in the sense that Jupiter is the sense of curiosity and also the seed of something. Okay, so the seed, when you plant a seed in the ground, it grows. Okay, it becomes a creation. Okay, this is where you are a creation. Right now we have Jupiter in Aries, so you can think of yourself as a creation. Whether you address it as divine creation or simply creation. And so Neptune is about receiving ideas, being receptive to ideas, or merging with the creative spirit, showing the invisible with Neptune, okay, showing the invisible, That can be the poet, that can be the painter. Um, the sense of reality as a liquid reality, and this is why the imagery of the ocean and the depth of the ocean. Um, it's being in very close touch with all there is. And this is both Neptune and the archetype of Pisces itself. So, Pisces, and in terms of ideas, okay, the Jupiterian aspect, and Neptune, the dissolution of boundaries, Pisces brings together ideas that can be contradicting and dissolves the boundary between them. And so the connecting two that seemingly cannot connect together into oneness is the ability of Pisces. Okay? The symbol for Pisces is the two fish that each swims, or each head turns to the other direction. Okay, and so it's the bringing together of. When you think about it, where will you see two live fishes and horny cats around? Pardon the horny cats. Where will you see two live fishes? One heading, north, and one heading south. In nature, when will you see that? Other than, for example, the ocean, because if you go through a stream of water, if you go through a river, it heads one direction, and the fish are going with the direction, or going, the saying about the fish swimming against the stream, or swimming against the stream. It's like going against the grain. Um, but the the reality of one fish going one way and the other fish going the exact opposite, and they're meeting each other. When they're meeting each other, this is Pisces. That can only be in the ocean, where the streams are so interconnected, where you could have weird stuff like one pack of fish swimming one way and then the other pack of fish swimming the other way. In a river, you won't have that. You have the stream going downhill. Um, and so the reality of Pisces is that the impossible is natural. It's beyond, if you think about Jupiter in Sagittarius, it is nothing is impossible. You make it happen. While in Pisces, that which seems impossible outside of the realm of Pisces, in Pisces, is the norm. And if you think about cultures, okay, um, I saw an article about an anthropologist who talked about a certain tribe, I don't know which, in Africa. And he said that he went to research their lifestyle, and he said, what to us seems unreasonable, and that is the reality, that most of life is leisure. This is also Piscean, okay? Most of life is leisure. You're not supposed to work. Okay, you hunt stuff, then you have food for I don't know how long, and you just enjoy your life. And where he went, the tribe was living pretty much that type of lifestyle. The majority of the day of the residents of that tribe was around leisure, whether it's dancing, or whether it's just enjoying life or enjoying nature. This is how they live. They may not have the technology that we have, but they did not live around the strenuous. In Western society, we talk about leisure time as something that is recent. Okay, before the Industrial Revolution, people were the machines, so they worked like slaves, like ants, all the time. Children worked. Mothers would bring children, not connecting to the child even, because the child could die, and children were working. Okay? Now we have this raising awareness to child labor as something that we see, in my belief, rightfully so, but now Jupiter in Pisces ruled, right? Ascendant Pisces rules, Jupiter ruled. Jupiter is in Capricorn. Um, but when you think about how the clash of cultures, a person coming from a culture where the very notion of having a day off work is something that generations had to fight for and lose their life for and risk their life for, or alternatively, it was generated by a lot of people starving and having no work, and then you had just leisure time, and you have whole industries built around that leisure time. Um, and then coming to a village where most of the life is leisure. Okay? So this place where we have a reality that seems unusual and out of this world is normal in Pisces. Another archetype of the fish is flow. Okay, um, there is a sense of letting go. You're a speck in the ocean. You're part of the great vast. So that, and I'm being cautious when attempting to interpret that because we're indoctrinated as astrologers to look at Pisces and Neptune as a sense of helplessness, although that might be our own interpretation, as is just understanding that you're a being that is interconnected or that is one with things, and so you move as one with things. If I join this idea and the cultural clash idea, when the social credit score system came into being in China, what I know, okay, from my perspective, so I could be completely wrong, and feel free to correct me if you are more knowledgeable about this, okay? Um, a lot of the people were seeing it as a very good thing because they saw themselves as this part of the great vast, this is the Republic of China, and it was something that was they saw as, oh, now I will be able to know if this person is a thief, if this person did something, if this person is dangerous, then I will able to know. And they placed a lot of trust in this system that brings a lot of order and arrangement to their lives. That from a Western perspective, it's like, oh my gosh, are you crazy? Like, you're going to do so and so, and somebody is just going to say you did so and so, and then your credit score is poof, is out, and this is the government controls you, and so and so and so. So think about it from a Western point of view. What big noise? Edward Snowden is basically taking refuge in Russia, as far as I know. I think it's Russia still, because he worked for the US government, and he leaked that the US government spies on its allies and citizens worldwide. And that was such a big issue that he could not enter the United States, even though he was working for the United States as American. He just saw it and he wanted to inform the fellow citizens that this is something that happens. And then he had to take refuge in Russia because people were very concerned about this, and so there was reaction to that. Whereas you would have a social credit score, which necessitate spying. What we consider spying is just surveillance and the notion of permeability to the government eye or to organization, to the structure eye of your everyday life experience. And that by many parts of the society was perceived as something that is positive, that gives them order, that gives them a place where they know. I see, I'm walking in the street and I see this person, oh, they have this credit score. I may walk to the other side. Okay, I'm just going to be aware, be cautious about them, and I trusted the system. Um, So whether it's changed or not changed now, I don't know. I cannot speak about what I don't know. But in the Piscean realm, you think about it as the fish in the ocean. Okay, you get these vibes, you get that vibe. You don't really know to define what, but you swim there and then you swim there, and and the stream takes you here and the stream takes you there, and it's like there every place there is something, and you just accept what is. Okay, depending on what your position to Pisces, you may or may not experience this position as helpless. There are points where you just accept what is. Okay, um, and that sense of, well, you just, that's just that, can be perceived by action oriented societies as helplessness, as pitiful, as even degrading and humiliating. Um, and the other form, Pisces, the Piscean age, from an esoteric monotheistic point of view, is considered associated with Jesus and Christianity. Okay, so Jesus was considered the bringer of the Piscean age, as he sacrificed, the notion of sacrificed himself for the sins of humanity, from the Christian perspective. Okay, you don't have to be Christian to hear this. This is just the story of the esoterics of Christianity, and he was bringing us from the Aryan age, the Aries age, into the Pisces age. So Aries age, we got monotheism, right? Um, and then Pisces age, or increasing monotheism, in Pisces age, there is this sense of sacrifice. And sacrifice is, at least on a Western level, I do not know, for example, Chinese astrology. I do not know, even Kabbalistic astrology is considered Western, and I do not know Kabbalistic astrology. And I do not know, like, Indian astrology does not refer to the outer planets traditionally, so there is no teaching about Neptune. Um, so from what we have from Western point of view, we think of Neptune also as the sacrifice or the act of sacrifice, and Pisces where um, we may sacrifice. We may sacrifice, and then there can be also the reality formation, or at least the way we interpret it as Westerners. If you go to Lise Green on astro.com and you read stuff to do with Pisces in a composite chart or in a synastry, I think they have delineations for composite charts, which is how I started astrology. And you read about Neptune, you read about the savior victim complex. Okay? And so this is a perspective that if a person cares for another, there can be a hidden motive, hidden egoistic motive, because we're not egoless. Um, for example, a person can be dealing with addiction, which is another Piscean related, okay, aspect, because we are human beings, we're not fishes. And in our society, we grow to have an ego, to have a desire for expression. And when that is not being addressed, then there can be addiction. When our needs are not met, then there can be addiction. We're not validated, we're not witnessed, we're not cared for. Then a person can develop all kinds of, trying to complete that and being unsatisfied and hungry. Um, and so let's say a person deals with some addiction, and so the way they deal is that they care for another person. But then what happens when that other person becomes healthy, okay, is that the Piscean or the healer or the caregiver goes through an existential crisis, because up until now their caring for this person lifted them up. Okay, they kept their head above the water. And now that person does not need all that much care. And just when somebody begins to heal, then there can be a drag, trying to drag them down to the place where they still need care. And this is the savior victim complex, or if you know the triad of the perpetrator, savior, and victim, and how these play around in attempting to heal relational patterns. So, because the archetype of Pisces is so one with everything, and the unit of analysis called the human being, at least in Western society, is unique and has its own ego. I'm looking at the birds and they have so beautiful patterns here. It's just so amazing. I don't think I would get that on camera, but not with this camera. Might with the other camera. I might try it. Oh, this is so beautiful. Wow. Those changing shapes of abstracts, like artistic, and this brings me to beginning to join Venus in Pisces. Um, but before that, so for the archetype of Pisces, our sense of self, at least in Western society, is encouraged to some extent more than other societies, and so facing the Piscean place where you're one with everything, you are everything and you are nothing at the same time. And this is normal, this is natural, okay? It's not, you don't work hard for this, it just happens. Is something that is quite unusual to a lot of the way that a lot of us have been brought us up in the world, for better or for worse. Okay? And so our interpretation of that state can be psychosis, addiction, helplessness, neediness. Oh, this person is so needy, they need care, they need attention all the time, because the concept of Pisces, if you're one with everything and you don't see the difference between you and that which is the other, it is natural that they will dedicate their attention to you. They will be with you all the time because you're one with them. Okay, and the breakage of the sense of self when the otherness is made visible to the Piscean archetype can be very painful. And so this is not projection per se. Projection is more Pluto. It is just the experience of oneness. Neptune also rules over medicine, and so poison, medicine, wine. It's not poison as in the Scorpio, but this is also medicine, the type of medicine that makes you numb or gives you alternative reality experiences. So psychedelics and um, any anesthesia that you've been given, everything, sleeping pills, okay? And unfortunately, the type of drugs that is easy to get addicted to. A lot of addictions that people have are addictions that began with being prescribed a drug and then not being able to come off the drug. Right? This is a lot, or I won't say the majority of addictions that people deal with, but a lot of them. So, so if you think that the person who's dealing with addiction is doing so because they did not make right choices in life or because they are weak, I have witnessed people who try to get out of addiction, and then the world was just not assisting them, and how strong they are and how powerful they were, and all that strength and all that power, the power that the inner power and the decisions power that they had is just at that time was not yet enough to show immediate results for clearing the addiction. And it was one of the most, soul provoking experience to witness that. And I never judge people who are addicted, but it's one thing not to say I don't judge and not know, and it's a completely other thing to have somebody sitting in your room next to you and experiencing and going through that, all the while receiving little to no help from the universe, from the people around them, not from the universe. But these Pisces can feel, at least in Western societies, as though um, they are helpless. And this is also the point of isolation, because you can feel one with everything, but you can also feel nothing. Okay, and then a person can feel a sense of isolation that is so tremendous that they don't even have themselves. Okay, so to go from the range of oneness uh, to the absence of being. It's beyond an existential crisis because there isn't any existing field to begin with, as everything is so liquid and so melting and merging with everything else. So that was a long introduction. And now when we combine Venus with in Pisces, the connection spots and why Venus is exalted in Pisces is Venus is about relationships and Pisces is about merging. Okay? Venus is also about creativity, about art, about expressing our voice in the world. And Pisces is about permeability to that which is the other. So you can show the invisible when you have Venus in Pisces. You can sing about it. You can just sing with your voice, play with your voice, and you can describe unimaginable and unintelligible realities just by the sound of your voice. And today I did just that, and I was waiting at the bus, and there was nobody around, and I just started singing and ad-libbing and forgetting that Venus was in Pisces. I was like, I didn't know how to delineate that. I was like, oh, Venus Day, but Venus in Pisces, and we're approaching, it's not yet into conjunctive, formal out, um, and the moon is growing. So there's this sense of playing with the vocal cords, playing with the voice on the sense of value. You can value the intangible. Okay, so today I saw, I think I have the picture here because I took a picture and, sorry, just some Twitter pictures. How do I do this? Like this without showing anybody. Yeah, sorry. Um, so this says the oldest style of art were creative abstracts and probably not made by us. Okay, so I just took a picture of this article that I saw on Venus Wisdom on the Venus Day, um, abstract art and the sense of not made by us. Okay, so there's something was channeled, something was doing something in the work of matter and spirit that was abstract, that was shapeless. And this is Venus in Pisces. I will do a paint about astrology episode later today. You can also hear it in the sound of my voice. Try to compare my voice right now to Venus in Pisces, and compare my other videos. Okay, for when Venus was in Aquarius. How was my voice when Venus was in Aquarius? It was different. Now there's something more airy, more dreamy, more outer worldly with my voice. It's not volitional. I don't do it on purpose. It's just I'm half channeling, and it always takes me somewhere. So it almost like I don't sound like myself or my usual self. It's like, but this is also me. I feel like it's me more than ever, and at the same time, it's very different from other Venuses, voices that I have along the cycles, the cosmic cycles. So for a natal Venus in Pisces, you may feel that even your voice, your mimic, okay, your mannerism, your sound is going with the flow that is beyond you, and this melting and molding into shapes and that are abstract. And I'm getting like a, yeah. So Venus in Pisces on the artistic level is somebody that can express with their voice that which is intangible. It can also be that you're in touch with realms beyond this realm, or realms that some people consider unrealistic. Um, on a relational level, this is interesting because Venus is exalted in Pisces. Okay, so If, for example, I wanted to give you a gift as Venus in Pisces, I would make I would make music. I would write music for you that has no specific shape, or I would paint something for you that has that is abstract, but that is melting. And I think in my paint about astrology with Neptune, I trust that the difference between the dissolving and the complete merging of colors. So I would probably go something along these lines, complete merging of colors. And, and that's for natal, but that can also be for a transit. Right? During Venus in Pisces, people might appreciate those types of arts more. They might do ad libs with the voice that take them somewhere. And they just follow the stream, follow the flow. Sense of freedom that you get. So the value of oneness might be particularly important to you with Venus in Pisces. So the value of oneness, the value of connection. And this is interesting because Venus is exalted in Pisces, and exalted, this is something we consider positive. That being said, it can be that you might tend to have relationships that are based on ideation. And this is also a facet of Neptune. You ideate something and then you can be disillusioned, you can be disappointed. And you can get to the depth of the oceans and the highest of highs and the lowest of lows in your relational nature, in your love language. Um, so you can think somebody is so amazing. So this is also for Neptune Venus aspects. And you can watch my Venus Wisdom on a Venus Day when I address the different aspects of Venus to outer planets, and how the Venus Neptune hard aspects play out, because you can ideate somebody very, very deeply and then be completely disillusioned with who they are in reality. It doesn't mean that they're a bad person, they're just not who you thought they were. And you may have built a certain type of expectations around the sense of oneness that you genuinely felt in a reality that is your own. I remember I spoke with someone, and she was shaman, and we were talking about relationships and so on and so forth, and the Neptunian realities. And she said she remembers a story where she felt for one person that they should absolutely be together, and there was this spirit connection. But that person did not at all feel that way. Yeah, they liked her, they thought she's a great friend, but they did not at all feel that romantic ideation. And she understood the solipsistic experience that she was in was broken, because now she had to face the sense of otherness where she feels the reality with her entire being that they should be together, that they're one, that they're connected, that there's something there, but that he was not a partner to that reality. And this is something that can happen with Neptune. Okay, so it was not being malicious. He did not disillude her. He did nothing. He did not abuse, God forbid. It's just they spoke about it, they communicated, and she found out that no, she's not feeling at all this way. You think she's a great person, but it's absolutely not there. Um, and those are the type of things that can happen with Neptune. You can have a sense of oneness with someone, and that someone is not feeling that sense of oneness. They can think you're a great person. Again, that doesn't mean that they want to hurt you or abuse you or take advantage of you. It can put people in a very vulnerable situation. What Venus in Pisces in relationship can be very exalted in is to feel that connection. Okay, so she's capable of tremendous merging. How is she aspected is a question to ask. Where is Jupiter? Where is Neptune? Are they aspecting Venus? How are they aspecting Venus? Is another question to ask. Who is the ruler of the seventh? Who is the ruler of the fifth? So on and so forth. Um, on value, That might mean that you have intuition as to business, but that you can also be misguided. You can also have the sense that I know exactly this is what I should put my money on. And you could be absolutely right when everybody has it wrong because you receive your permeable to this intuitive information. Also, you might be subjected to the disillusion of boundaries between your wealth and your values and the world. Okay, so while Venus is exalted in Pisces, she's exalted because she can give us, she's the person that can give us a spiritual experience of love that is beyond the realm of the physical. And you need to understand that when you address your Venus in Pisces, whether it's natal, whether it shows in composite, whether it shows, well, in composite is more Venus Neptune or Venus Jupiter, and sometimes can be, whether a synastry or if there is a transit that triggers this, and you find you get to meet somebody and you're like, they're so amazing, they're so beautiful, they're so this, they're so that, and their reality can range from they feel the same and your spiritual connection is beyond this realm, to um, they are a lover boy or they are somebody who's trying to blackmail you and love bomb you, whether you're a man or a woman. It's not about gender. These things happen to all people, or or trans person or queer person, but they actually try to blackmail you or they try to get something out of you through appealing to your vulnerability and need in oneness and need in merging. If I think about, it's the kind of person that can say, oh, I feel like we've been knowing each other for years. And that can be a genuine truth, and that can be a manipulative statement that meant to, okay, blackmail. And so with Venus in Pisces, with Pisces in general, the word surrendering comes into play because you might feel that you're being carried by currents that are beyond your comprehension, the depth of the ocean. You've been carried by the depth of the ocean. And this is important because society sees the Piscean archetype or people that display the Piscean archetype as um, weak and and as helpless. Okay, while another form of interpretation is they are at that facet of the current, they're at that facet of reality, they're at that facet of the waters, and they will re-emerge and go with the current of the waters because that is their being. There is nothing strong or weak about that. That's just is. Okay. Um, so for possessions, there can be permeability to experiences of the Neptunian type. So that can be hacking into systems, the identity. Okay, identity. Identity is more for ascendant, but also um, your possessions were just something going on, like having possessions and not having possessions, and or feeling one with your possessions, which can also be the case. Okay, you can feel that you have this special connection with this glass, and you see this glass everywhere you go, and she's your friend, and this is and that's an absolute experience. You see this glass everywhere you go. Manifestation is yet another facet for any archetype of Pisces, and Venus in Pisces. You can manifest relationship, you can manifest possessions, you can manifest things in your life, you can manifest through your voice, speak it into being, dance it into being, sing it into being, paint it into being, perhaps dream it into being. Um, and that's I remember one artist that I can think of with the Piscean moon. is Darren Hayes, and he spoke about when he was a child and he went through a difficult, very difficult life and been abused and so on. And when he would feel like um, he, he's in this situation, and he would imagine, let's say, I don't know, he was running from kids that were troubling him about his sexual identity or something, what he now knows is sexual identity. Um, and then he said, "Oh, I was actually, I could dream that I was, I'm actually very, very famous." Okay, before he became very famous, he said, "Oh, I'm actually very famous, and all these people that are chasing me because they want my autograph and so on." And so he made this idea in his head that he's very famous, that he's very successful, and this reality came into being so much so that he became a star. Okay? That is a very Piscean archetype. So for Venus in Pisces, you might manifest through your relationship. You might have a significant other or a sister or a Venusian figure in your life, or you might be an artistic person, a singer, a musician, a painter, or someone who expresses their voice in a very Piscean way and manifests things into being with the power of your voice. So for this transit for Venus in Pisces, um, right now, for example, the moon sextiles, okay, this Venus in Pisces, applying to sextile this Venus in Pisces. It also applies to square Pluto, so you need to be cautious with that. Um, but you can feel the reality that you are in right now as the reality that you're bringing into being right now, with the no boundaries between you and the desired reality. Okay, this is the power that you have. Okay, if you work with this particular aspect, remember, if you're doing it right now, if you as you listen to me, then do remember the moon is applying to square Pluto. Okay, just remember that. Um, so for transit of Venus in Pisces, you can get into your manifesting and manifest for your relationships. Um, you can have good times with your sisters, a spiritual connection with Venusian figures in your life or with musicians. Or you could feel like you're one, or you're feeling the energy of someone very near, and you're taken by this current. Or you can make music, or you can make art, and you can enjoy this time together. You might be more liquid with your possessions, okay? So this is something to pay attention to, okay? So you might get optimistic about spending a lot of money because Pisces is a liquid, it's a water sign, and money might be spilling out of your pockets, but it might also be spilling into your pockets. Okay, so viewing emotions as water is something that you might be interested in. Just make sure that you do not forget Earth, that you do not forget reality, um, because yes, you are more susceptible to be impressionable. Somebody, you might decided, oh, I'm going to spend all that money. I packed all this money, and this money was, I don't know, for your monthly rent. And you're like, yeah, I'm gonna spend all that money. I'm getting my paycheck. I'm gonna spend all that money on this show that I always wanted to see of this artist or this person. Or that. I'm going to travel there and going to see that show. And while it might be that you find a pocket that allows for that, it's like, hey, there is a pocket that I actually saved money that I can use for that purpose. And not only that, I can make connections, Venus Pisces, um, with people that's going to gain me wealth. So it's actually worth the investment. And even if I don't, nothing comes out of it, I, I still had a very good time, and it didn't hurt my, objective reality. While other cases can be, oh, my paycheck is coming. Oh, I saved all this money. And you forget you've saved it, I don't know, to buy land, to pay your rent, to pay your tuition, I don't know. or for something for an emergency, and you say, "Oh, this is so. I just saw this abstract work of art, and I want to support young artists, and that a young artist is like a billionaire artist, and you're spending that money on this photo. It could be very beautiful, very valuable to you, but it's like you didn't save anyone, you didn't help anyone, you bought something that's valuable, um, but you might not be able to sell it at the same price, and you might need the money for something more urgent. So this is also, just because a planet is exalted or benefic does not mean it doesn't bring its own set of experiences. And now let's go for a Venus in Pisces, and the journey Venus will have in this sign. So let's start animating the chart. Can I animate here? That's, yeah, I think one day is good enough. So currently Venus is separate from a conjunction with Saturn, who has just left Deneb Algedi, and I have wonderful Venus Moon Deneb Algedi stories. So like this is for another episode. So Venus is in 0 degree Pisces, squaring, well, vertex, I don't think that I can say anything smart about that. And the moon is applying to sextile Venus. She's separating from a conjunction with Saturn. So she's being relieved. She's in good terms with the moon. The moon is in a fire sign, in Aries sign. So she can be in a connection with an emotional nature that's very passionate. Let's just go on in the days. Tomorrow and tomorrow. So tomorrow we see Venus beginning to sextile, which is she's applying to sextile the nodes. Okay, Venus is in 1 degree already. Applying to sextile the nodes, still in the sextile with the moon, but the moon is exalted, the moon is in Taurus, that is ruled by Venus, and growing. The moon is separating, okay, is squaring the sun at this time, is applying to square the sun, which also squares the nodes. So would be very cautious if you want to use this election for magical purposes, or you want to use it as an election, even though the moon is exalted. I might wait a couple of hours, but then the moon would still be exalted, but it will no longer, it will begin to square Venus. That might be better for you. So let's just move 6 hours. Let's just move 6 hours within this day. And we see the moon squaring the sun, applying to conjunct Uranus. Another 6 days, which is the next day. Yeah, not touching the sun. So Venus is already in 2 degrees. Oops, 2 degrees. Pisces. She is not touched by any planet. Okay, this is lot of fortune. So unless you're born on this day, there's nothing smart I can say about this, because the lots is something you delineate from. We do a practice called zodiacal releasing, and this is from the native chart. I don't think a transit to the lot of fortune has any personal meaning for you as transit, because it's unless this is your lot return or something. But then you would have to do zodiac releasing from the chart of a native, so I don't say anything about that. She doesn't have any aspect here. 0 degree Pisces, no aspects. So let's just continue. Oh, just one more 6 hours. This is Sunday the 29th here in Israel. It might be different in your time zone. And here Venus is still not making any aspects. So for the duration of the moon in Taurus, it will not be making aspects to Venus. Or here, no, here it begins. No, it squares Saturn. let's see. And Venus 3 degrees, still not having any impact. She's approaching formal out. Or she was formal out is 2 degrees Pisces. I think it's 2 degrees Pisces. Uh, but okay, this is interesting because for formal out this time, the moon is not touching Venus. And if you go for the 0 degrees Venus, then the moon is squaring Pluto. So if you know how to work with the effect of the moon squaring Pluto, you might go for Venus Pisces election for talismanic materia when the moon sextiles Venus, which is today. But if if you want to do a formal out one, then it's difficult because the moon is not creating the aspect. You would need to go the moon on formal out, but if you want to get Venus on a formal out again, right now it seems to not be happening. Um, and Venus is beginning to create an aspect here to the moon. No, okay, but here what happens in the May 30th, which I realized for some people, I don't know if it's the same date, the moon will eclipse Mars. Okay, so for me it will probably be the next date, January 31. But for some of you, the moon will eclipse Mars, so I don't know like what to predict for that, but just know it happens. Um, on this day, Venus squares Mars, and Mars is still on Aldebaran. There's a whole of a lot, whole lot about Mars in Aldebaran, which I still need to cover, which I'm still experiencing. Um, Aldebaran is of the nature of Mars and Jupiter. So fighting for what's right and taking the crown, winning, okay? Winning, fighting, but it's also in Ruhini Nakshatra, which is material possessions. And so there is material possession. You win something of a material possession, or you win an argument over material possessions in whichever Gemini house. But Venus here is squaring it. And this is the only aspect she's making. Okay, she's applying to square this Mars in Aldebaran. So you could have a win, but there is some tension with the Venusian figure in your life. Okay. Let's continue to see what aspects is Venus making. Um, okay, let's go for the 1 day again because 1 day. So here Venus is also aspecting, I see she's also squaring Mars and the moon. So the moon is applying to square Venus as the moon enters Gemini, right? That means the moon once again will be conjuncting Mars, and as I'm speaking, the dog was barking. As I'm speaking about it, some dog began to bark, and yeah, which I find interesting. So energy, or if it's something in the current chart, but let's move. Let's move here, and yeah. So now here, less of the dog barking. So this is when we have the moon in Gemini conjuncting with Mars again. What will happen as Mars leaves Aldebaran? Venus will be squaring this win, okay? When the moon crosses over something, it triggers it. Okay, so moon triggering Mars in Aldebaran, this is the moment, okay? This is the money time. But Venus in Pisces is squaring that win, okay? It can be you know, you win some sort of material possessions, and you're set in to go. Let's say you buy a house and you're set in to go to the post office or whatever to change the ownership. Okay, there's an ownership bill, so you want to change the right to ownership bill, and you really want to just, you know, you really want to just have a 5 hour painting session, but now you have to go and do that. So you want the property, or you know, you got the property, and you have to do the arrangement of, you know, signing the contract, because Mercury is contract and Mercury is still in Capricorn, so it's construct contract. So you want to sign that contract, but what you actually feel like doing, Venus, is celebrating. You want to drive in your car and listen to the music and sing along, but now you have to drive with your family to a business meeting and sign this contract. And that can be like, it's a positive contract. You're about to win this deal. You're signing the deal. You're gaining wealth. But you kind of feel like you just want to paint. You just want to dream. You just, you know, so that can just be a portrait of what is happening there. Next day, and this is February 1st. Okay, which brings me to another video that I need to do, which is February predictions. February 1st, Venus is strongly applying to square this Mars, but the moon is not touching either Mars or Venus, so you will feel it. It's not as strong as the previous day. Going forwards. Now, this is a beautiful one. Let's see. This is a very beautiful one. Okay, you see Venus here in Pisces, 7 degrees. The moon is in Cancer. You might change the ascendant a bit from Neptune, because the ascendant is right on Neptune. She is very strongly applying to square this Mars, which you have to take into account. If you're a day chart, that might be more significant for you or more problematic for you. But she's also trining the moon in Cancer. Here, the moon is ruling Cancer. It's applying to trine Venus in Pisces. So that can be a very cozy day where you're dreamy and fluffy. Um, and that can be a very blessed experience. Again, it might be squaring something, you know, some contract that you have to sign, something that has to be. Oh, you know what? This is funny. When, yeah, I think, was it yesterday? Yesterday, I was at the Dead Sea, and I was bathing in the Dead Sea and, you know, enjoying the salt, and not too many people. It was 29 degrees Celsius and really, really beautiful day. And then two combat planes were just crawling across the sky. And that was, you know, the juxtaposition of this dreamy vacation mode with two combat planes just going over. And I said, you know, when you talk about international relations, there really is no other way to explain a situation other than to take a group of, you know, diplomats or people or business people to the Dead Sea to vacate and to bathe in the water and just see these combat planes. And there were just two combat planes, nothing before that, nothing after that. It almost looked as a part of, you know, the pastoralic view. So natural, yeah, so natural. And in this picture, there's just two combat planes going. They really, you know, how natural it is, how smoothly it goes. They didn't take too much of the conversation, okay, the aesthetics of the experience. It was just so natural, and that is a very I don't know if Venus was in Pisces or not yesterday, or if she was already in Pisces, but this is so much capturing the with moon in Cancer. It's more cozy moon. I had the moon probably in Pisces when I think about it, or was it already in Aries? I don't know. I was not with my cell phone for a couple of days. So this experience where you could be on a vacation and there are just, two combat planes going in the sky in the picture. That could be an election date where something like that happens. Okay, so it is not necessarily um, too terrible. But Mars is leaving Aldebaran here. So Mars is in Gemini, doing its Mars in Gemini thing in the shade period, okay, with its ruler being in Capricorn. And squaring that Venus while she tries the moon in Cancer. Next day, the February 3rd, the square aspect between Venus and Mars intensifies and intensifies. Saturday intensifies furthermore. This is the only aspect she's making. I don't think that there is delineation for this lot of fortune as transit, but I could be wrong. And here, Sunday, 5th of February, we have an exact square from Venus to Mars, but Venus sextiles, applying to sextile Uranus. So here we have a joint mixture of tension, okay? Venus-Mars tension aspects are not necessarily bad. Um, there's a channel called Truth in Aspect Astrology that teaches composite and synastry astrology, and one of the things I remember her saying was about the Mars square Venus on relationship context is that this is the friction. Also in sexual tension, it takes the friction to create arousal. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. Um, that being said, it is conflictual, okay? It is conflict. It's a hard aspect, it's a tension aspect between Venus and Mars. It's not a harmonious aspect, okay? Your Mars and your Venus do not blend naturally. There's some work to do that's not easy to sort out, and some challenge. On the other hand, we do have a sextile forming a planet sextile to Uranus. And harmonious Venus-Uranus aspect, this one does not have Saturn in the chart with Venus, so this one is a transient one. If it's a business thing, that can be, a business deal that has some frictions, that has some challenges, but can come to an unexpected solution and you can gain wealth unexpectedly. But this is a one time, if you get, if it's a client or you give a reading to someone or you have a business and you have this client, unexpectedly they're like super excited about you. And they will just purchase this, one big purchase, because Uranus can be about, big purchases. This suddenly unexpected, or they might purchase or they might desire something unusual. If you have a shop, that they might come for a thing that nobody asks about and they buy it, but they're not likely to be a returning client with this aspect, okay, unless there's something in your own, composite or synastry that shows that. But in disguise, it shows for, a good one-time experience. Now, because Venus is in Pisces, it's not very likely to be a romantic experience, although it can be. Why am I saying that? Because Venus wants to merge on every level of being, especially the ethereal and the deeply emotional ones, okay? And that's not so compatible with casual sex, to be honest, right? I'm not saying it can't happen, but it's just highly unlikely. But then, who knows? Venus Uranus is unusual stuff. Okay? But this is harmonious. So if it is a one night thingy or a short affair, it will not be an experience that you will feel deeply disillusioned by. You may have friction, perhaps the person's communication style is too direct for you, Mars, or they say, harsh words, and you're like, you are compassionate about that, and then you decide to break off and you really appreciate the experience. You both have a deeply soul connection. It's just the way that they communicate that did not fit your sensual nature. Okay, think about a person who is very sensual and very this, and then somebody said, I would like to, I don't know, blah blah blah, blah, and that person is like, they were looking for the poetic lover, and then they found someone with like a direct speech and sharp words, and were like, okay, our sensual styles were compatible for that, but this is not something that I want to experience sensually on a day-to-day level. But that unusual experience, you would still appreciate that. Okay, again, it's not, the Mars Venus is not necessarily to be dominant in the picture if it is a thing. Or you might have tension with someone. Okay, there could be the Martian to Venusian, and it's not about gender expression. Okay, it's an intricate issue to understand without falling into categories. I find it difficult myself to explain that without falling into binary categories of existence, like yin and yang and so on and so forth. Um, but you can have this tension where there is attraction in the air, or there's drawing to each other, and there's friction. Um, but just what generates this friction and arousal for its conflicting nature is not suitable for the manifestation of what you actually desire. Okay, again, that you can meet a great lover that likes their, like wants to talk dirty to you, and you actually look for the poetic lover, and they're like, they're very attractive. You're attracted, you're drawn to them because they're different, and you want to be one with them, but you just can't. Like, this is not your style. Um, so alternatively, you might think this is your style, then you come to try and you see like, oh, like it's not working, like slot A won't turn into tab B or whatnot. And then Uranus comes and says, because Uranus and Taurus is like, oh, okay, what's not working here is that this type of speech is not sensually arousing for me on the physical level. It's like, oh, I feel one with this person, but my vagina, my penis needs a certain type of communication to be aroused, to enjoy on the physical level. So Uranus can say, oh, okay, I get it. Uranus is the unusual form, is the unusual insight. And then you learn this new thing about your body, about the intelligence of your body, Uranus and Taurus, that tells you that, oh, okay, now I get it. Okay, so now I know to put that on my manifestation list, that I want the partner to communicate in so and so way. Okay, and you feel happy about that. You didn't have good sex, you didn't have sex, but you feel happy, but now you know better what you're manifesting in, a sexual partner. And that can be one of the manifestations. On a business level, again, there can be a deal not made, or a deal falling, or a deal that is contrast to you, okay, that you're not satisfied with, but Uranus tells you, oh, now I understand why I wasn't satisfied. Oh, I didn't know that about myself, and now I know better what I like. Okay, so it's that type of aspect. Or from the Uranus perspective, some unexpected attraction that you do enjoy, even though, albeit the friction actually makes it more enjoyable to you, but it's not long term. Yeah. And this continues to February 6th and February 7th. The same, pretty much the same. What's here? Okay, February 8th, we have the moon opposing Venus, that is separating from the square with Mars and applying to sextile, and is tightly sextiling Uranus. Okay, this can be an election. Okay, again, if you're a day chart, I would be very cautious. Okay, like I have these bottles that I was so excited that I got an election for, Jupiter in Pisces, and then, I forgot that Mars was square in my ascendant, and now I'm like, I'm not a day chart, but still, I don't know what to do with these bottles now. And so, I'm not professional enough so that I can give it to somebody else, because they're not astrologers. So this happens. So, but if you're not, like, if you know how to go about this, then this might be an election for you for a Venus in Pisces talismanic material, because the moon is opposing it. The moon is in Virgo, okay? So you have to take this into account. A moon in Virgo, it's not fallen, it's not exalted. It's just moon in Mercury sign, but it does attract Venus, so you can, tap into that Venus. What the moon is also decreasing by then, so decreasing moon, I don't know. Okay, I don't know the lunar mentions, so I can't really advise on that. Um, so decreasing moon. So this is interesting because if you want to manifest your relationship, what I would use the talisman for is to manifest the release of um, the release of the boundaries between you and the desired relationship, the dissolution of the boundaries between you and the desired relationship. This is how I would manifest when I'm manifesting with a decreasing moon. Okay, with increasing moon, I would manifest, I want so and so and so and so. Oh, this is already happening. Okay, this relationship is already happening. With the decreasing moon, the dissolution of the boundaries between me and the desired relationship that I want is happening. Okay, manifest the dissolution of the boundaries. I ask the moon to dissolve the blockages that I have around having a beautiful, connective, spiritual, creative, safe relationship. Okay, around being both spiritual and creative, enjoying the various realms of the world, and being safe. Okay, and being discerning. Moon in Virgo is good for discernment. Okay, so I dissolve the blockages I have from enjoying a both, cosmic, creative, spiritual relationship, and being discerning and safe and practical in my relations, my possessions, my connections. Okay, this is a good manifestation to put for this particular election. Okay, you do have to take into account. Okay, the sextile with Uranus here, I love, because Uranus and Taurus can give us, it revolutionizes how we see Venus. Okay, it revolutionizes our not relational pattern, but a love language. It gives us insight. Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that this type of sensual pleasure is what I enjoy. I didn't know that. Oh, it's okay. Now I know this type of touch I like. This type of touch I don't like. It like this is a revolution for you to be something very small about your sensual nature, about your possessions, about your values. Oh, I didn't know I value abstract art so much. Okay, for me today was a discovery when I looked at the article that I showed you when I talked about Venus in Pisces in natal and transit, about abstract art. I didn't. It was a revelation for me of how much I appreciate abstract art, and I wasn't aware about this. It was just natural to me, but I wasn't aware that this is something I value. I really value abstract art. Okay, it can be something as simple as that. And then remember, this is separation from the square to Mars in Gemini, middle phase decan of Gemini. You have to take it into account. It's a part of what you're doing here. Okay, so this is important. Then we continue February 9th and February 10th. We have this Venus is slowly approaching Neptune and beginning to conjunct Neptune. Okay, February 10th, February 11th, Venus is beginning to conjunct Neptune, squaring Mars. This is also when Mars is slowly, not yet, okay, still not, beginning to square Neptune again. Okay, let's move around a bit so that we can get a tighter aspect Yeah, Venus is separating from the square to Mars, and I ignore this lot of fortune because I don't know how to delineate that as transit. If you do, then feel free to share in the comments. And Venus is okay. This one is interesting. This is another interesting. I'm not saying election, but it's interesting time. February 13th in the Middle East. The moon in Scorpio, and if we wait, I'll just take it 3 hours. Yes, the moon in Scorpio separating from an opposition to Uranus. Okay, so if you want to do Uranus talisman, you will have earlier that day a moon in Scorpio opposing Uranus in Taurus. If you want to work with this energy, if you want to get to know this energy more, do take into account that the moon is in Scorpio. Why did I wait for the 21? Okay, first of all, it's an exact trine to Venus and it applies to trine Neptune. And then it is the last phase of Scorpio, depending on what system of phases or decans you're working with. This is Jupiter, decan of Scorpio. Okay, it's already the decan that belongs to the next sign. It's ruled by Jupiter. This is a very favorable. Okay, I've been lucky enough to have Mars in this decan. It's very favorable. Okay, I don't remember the name of the nakshatras, but the nakshatra of this Mars is the Mars that will act in favor of the instinct to do good. Okay, my Mars natally is retrograde, but now the progressive Mars is already direct, and um, it takes the passion of Mars. Mars in Scorpio is very passionate. In the Jupiterian, okay, when it goes, if you have it retrograde, so when it progresses to be direct, you become more positive about your ability to make these things happen in favor of the instinct of good. It's a very strong Mars. It's very competent. It's very competent in, not just competent, okay, it's competent in doing good. And then it can give you a sense of vitality and joie de vivre. So in Hebrew it says simchat chaim, okay, joy of life, because you understand that you are acting in favor of doing good, and you're capable of changing, you're capable of growing, you're capable of being a better person, and changing or transforming your actions in a way that they benefit the good of you and the good of the world. Okay, you don't feel this dissonance that some people, they might want to gain wealth, like I have Rao and Rohini. Okay, so there's desire to gain wealth, but their Mars is, yeah, now aspect, maybe they have Mars with conjunct this Rahu, and so they want to gain wealth, but the soul is like it is in dissonance with the things it has to do in order to fulfill the wishes of Mars. So it acts in a way that is not in alignment with the soul's desire to, when we cross over, then we'll do, what you get across the board is people telling you they only care about how many I love yous they said and meant that to how many people, and how much good they did in the world is more meaningful than literally anything else. Okay, I can't say I sense this viscerally every moment of the day, but Mars in Scorpio in the Jupiter phase is competent with the survivalistic wisdom of Scorpio, okay, and optimistic that still they can do good. Still, we can reinstall things that are just, that are in favor of humanity, that are in favor of the people, to bring that into being. The problem being that the moon is falling in Scorpio. And so, moon is not about survival games. It's about nourishment and feeling safe. So, Venus and the moon here trine. And Venus is already in the phase of Pisces that is Martian. Okay? And this is depending on how do you do phases and decans. So there is a problem because Venus is in the phase of Pisces that is less exalted, is contracting, the severing ties with the unjust, severing ties with this, with illusion. Any disillusionment, okay, if you had going through the journey of Pisces, of enjoying all the beautiful realities, then this phase is where you come to sever ties with the illusion part. Okay, you can enjoy something as a great artistic project, not being tied or attached to that being real in all worlds. Okay, understand that there are worlds in which your value, your truth value is not one. Okay, truth value one is what you hold as true. Truth value zero is not true. So understand there are worlds that in world, I don't know, X, the truth value for your, experience, for your whatever logistic whatnot is, and notice that I speak in logos that is already of the Aries type, right? The mind. But the head, not the genitals or the blood. So you already are thinking and understanding that, yeah, in my world, this experience is true, but in the world of X, or in a world that is epsilon, this this experience has the truth, holds the truth value of zero. Then you begin to have a bit of a binary category between the two. Okay, the one or this, the this or that. This is true to me, this is not true to me. Okay, this is already Aries realm. Okay, severing ties with the untrue, with the unjust, with that which is not me. Okay, me, the me in the Aries begins to form. I like chocolate, but bitter chocolate. Okay, I don't like milk chocolate. Don't give me milk chocolate. But when Venus was 2 degrees earlier, you loved every chocolate I would give you. Yes, now I like bitter chocolate. Give me bitter chocolate, not this chocolate, not milk chocolate. Okay, this is already that phase, which in Aries is going to be accentuated. But the moon is in the lesser evil phase of moon being in Scorpio, because Scorpio is about the core of your survival. Okay, it's edge experience, the edge of life, and many other things. But this trine between them um, can create a sense of relief about the experience of going through disillusion. Okay, I think it was S.J. Anderson who talked about the moon in this phase. I don't know if it was in relation to Venus or not, but the moon in this phase of Scorpio as, oh yes, it was when Jupiter was in Pisces in that degree. And there was this trine. And he said, well, it's about accepting the beauty or seeing the beauty in the grief or in the pain of the disillusionment. I'm messing up with the words, but that was more or less the message. So the disillusionment, the places where Venus has Pisces, and now she has to separate with certain facets of the realm that she has experienced and prepare herself into the place where she is actually fallen. Okay, she's going from exaltation to the sign of her fall. This is the sign opposite to the sign of her rulership, that is Libra. But she is trining the moon. So this one is beautiful for emotional radical acceptance, compassion, cultivating compassion. Yes, we are severing ties. Okay, perhaps this is where you experience a certain breakup. Perhaps this is where you experience that I had all these big dreams, but it's not going to happen now. Bless me. But you can process this grief with a more optimistic point of view. Okay, which like I still had this beautiful experience. It's just that now I'm heading to another realm. Okay, I had this beautiful journey, I had this wonderful vacation. And now I gotta get the business. I gotta do what I gotta do. You know, especially if you're the Venusian person here, you might have had a great vacation, and now you gotta go down to the nitty gritty of business, and you gotta wear your business uniform, and you can only manifest your, you know, gonna only be feminine in socially accepted places, or you can, you know, it's like there are a lot, there's a lot you can do, but it's not going to be as dreamy, as fluid as that. Now you just get to the point. Or you may have been dating someone, they saw you in this dreamy aspect and they fell in love with you, and now you're like, they're having a conversation with you, and you're like, well, can you get to the point? Because now you're being on, you're beginning to be a Venus in Aries. Like, can you get to the point? And they're like, what happened to her? She was so, you know, ethereal. Or alternatively, they might stop enjoying you're still that blendy person, and then they're like, okay, she's really flaky, she's really needy, he is really needy, he is really flaky. um, but then there's just, okay, there's grief in that separation, but you accept it. You can process this grief more favorably when the moon is in the last phase of Scorpio. The Venus conjunct in Neptune here, in this degree, it can be, well, the ideation and disillusionment. Okay, so it can be disillusionment, or it can be that um, there's a great connection to spirit. Whatever happens, there's a great connection to spirit. Even if you sever ties with someone now, you're still spiritually connected very much. Okay, or you can be disillusioned, which is another facet of Neptune. Let's do it with a day one. Yeah. So Venus is approaching now. She's only, this is February 14. Venus is only conjuncting Neptune in Pisces. Now Venus is exalted in Pisces. But there I said that Pisces has its highs and lows, and Venus um, can experience isolation here. Okay, she can feel alone in her experience. She can feel very much in love but not able to tell anyone, or very much grieving but not really able to explain to people who or what is she grieving. Okay, because Venus Neptune can have, you know, an infatuation with the spirit and a deep relation with them. And let's say, oh, let's say you're working with deities. Okay, maybe you've been working with a deity, and then the deity decided to sever ties. Like, they taught you the lesson that they needed to teach you, and now they sever ties with you. So you might be grieving, you might be deeply grieving, but you don't have any witchy friends around that you can talk about or share the experiences with. And so you're deeply in grief, but you're alone in that grief. Alternatively, you could be getting assistance from the realms beyond the physical. Okay, you could be getting witnessing from people or entities that do not exist in the physical or are not physically next to you. So there's the disillusion of boundaries around Venusian thing. Another thing that can happen, Neptune is also spies, it's also things going missing. So some Venusian things going missing. Okay, maybe you had this jewelry, now you can't find it. Okay, but this is, in many cases with the Neptune, this is fated. Maybe you have been separating from someone, and they gave you this gift, they gave you this jewelry. And the jewelry is just so beautiful, you can't throw it away, but you also can't wear it. And then Venus conjuncts Neptune, although it's not touched here by the moon. um, Venus, but maybe, you know, previously when the moon was still in Scorpio, Venus conjuncts Neptune, the moon crosses over, and that jewelry goes missing. Okay, problem solved. You're still grieving that jewelry, but it's like you weren't able to wear it, and you were also not able to let it go. Problem. When I think about my plans, so it's like problem solved. That thing just went missing. Okay. February 15. Just we have the tight conjunction here. The moon is squaring this conjunction of Neptune and Venus from Sagittarius. Um, well, it can be a Venus in Pisces talisman with Neptune. It can be. Okay, the moon is in Jupiter's sign and Venus is in Pisces, which is ruled by Jupiter, with Neptune, the modern ruler. So it can be an election. For me, this is on my ascendant. I'm very likely to at least create something talismanic here. I will mark this. The moon day, yeah. Yeah, I'm totally marking this because I will at least experiment with creating a talisman of this particular thing. This is a talisman. For one idea I have for this talisman, the moon is decreasing, is to dissolve the boundaries between women that went missing, women that are isolated, abuse of women, or sisters that went missing. Neptune is missing things, or isolation, or women spies. Dissolve the boundaries between them and freedom, because the moon is in Jupiter's sign of Sagittarius. So this could be a good talisman for asking the moon to dissolve the boundaries between these women, that's isolated women, unregistered women, refugees women, spies women, or musicians, or trans women, or sisters that went missing, that aren't registered, that that are in a situation where they dealt with the dissolution or violation of the boundaries, or and just dissolve the boundaries between them and freedom, liberation, and you know being seen because of the moon, being seen, being felt. This is a good talisman to do that. Um, so there's any woman that feels in a sense of isolation, any Venusian figure, okay, painter, creator, musician, that is in this situation. It's right on my ascendant, so it's a bit scary. But any person, and the moon will be on my midheaven later. So any person that is in this situation where they're isolated, when they're not seen, where they're not felt, where they don't feel oneness with people, that let these blocks dissolve, so that they can be felt, be seen, and be safe and free. Safe and free. This is a great talisman to be safe and free. Okay, for women to be safe and free. If you're not even a woman, okay, if you're a creative person, if you're an artistic person, intuitive person, channeler, spy, spy that is in favor of humanity, spy that is in favor of the good, like Edward Snowden, then this is a time where I would make a ritual, I would make an election, would make a talisman here. This is noon where I am at, so adjust the timing to where you are at. This is an election, okay? For me, this is that election. You could do a billion of other things. The moon is decreasing, okay? So remember, if you're manifesting there, remember that this is on the Mars phase of Pisces. And remember that the moon is decreasing, so you want to manifest with dissolve the boundaries between me and blah. Dissolve the blocks between me and blah, 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 okay? Or between that Venusian figure or Neptunian, okay, Neptunian figure that is in favor of humanity and feeling safe and free, okay, being felt, being seen, being safe and free. Okay, moon is safe, Jupiter sign, Sagittarius is free. So yes, and this is right. Like this is it's a very personal one for me because it is going to go over And my midheaven is 26 Sagittarius. Okay, February 16. This is also interesting. Venus is separating from a conjunction with Neptune, still in conjunct with Neptune, and applying to sextile a 29-degree Pluto. It's not triggered by the moon just yet. Lilith is separating from this opposition with Pluto. Yeah. Venus, this is the Venus-Pluto sextile. When Venus is still in Pisces. I really like that Venus is sextile in Pluto from a place where she's exalted and from a place where she's seen by a face of Mars. Okay, she's in the face of Mars. And at least according to the system, I don't even remember which system. Just it says like this is already the face of the next sign. And I really like that she's making this harmonious contact with Pluto, a very practical Pluto, 29-degree Pluto. So Venus is able to see what Pluto is teaching her. Pluto in 29 degrees Capricorn. It knows what will be 300 years from now. It knows what will be when Pluto will arrive to this point again. And it has something to say to Venus if she taps into it, and she can tap into it and she can paint that, she can create that, she can sing that, she can express that artistically with this condition. Okay, it's not an easy one. Okay, she's just left a conjunction with another outer planet with Neptune. She's still in conjunct, and this applying sextile to Pluto. She's able to artistically express the facets of reality that humanity is needing to see. February 17. Here we have the moon sextiling this Venus. It's in conjunction with Neptune applying to sextile Pluto. And she's touched by a very practical moon. Moon is fallen, is a detriment in Capricorn. He's fallen in Scorpio, I think. It's detriment in Capricorn. It's the opposite to the sign of his rulership. That's Cancer. And what the moon, and this is the time to go for the hours. So let's go to 6 hours. Yeah. The moon will be conjuncting this Pluto. This is the trigger. Okay. The coming hours, this is the trigger. This is where you write your work of art and publish it. Okay, write and publish. Okay, it's going to be, or you can write, you can create at this time, you can create, and you're creating a cleansing thing. Okay, the moon is decreasing. It's almost in its last phase. Okay? I don't know if it even still visible. It's still visible, but it's almost new moon. We forgot the full moon here, but I'll do it on the February video. Sun is with Saturn in Aquarius, almost entering Pisces. This is where you can get the glimpse in the coming hours. You would get a glimpse of what the world will look like from the plutocracy point of view in 300 years. Okay, for the next 300 years, at least you can get a premonition of some sort that you might not know how to process, but it will be a work of art, and you can schedule the publishing for an elected date when the moon is growing, because you want this to go viral, you want people to know, you want people to act. Okay, so you can write, you can compose something, you can, this is absolutely another election. It's February 17th. It's election for doing outer planets work. It's not election for manifesting anything for your personal life other than asking to be supported on this journey, because you're working with the outer planets, you're working in favor of the generations and of humanity. But this is a good time to do creation, to create something that is in favor of humanity, that is a premonition, that downloads a certain thing that the world needs to know, and publish it when like the time comes. Or you call alternatively, write and publish, write and publish within the coming hours, write and publish. And then it will have a different effect, and the effect is decreasing. So it will decrease, and the process will be quite fast, okay? You can have this final vanishing of something of certain frequency from the face of humanity, okay? Maybe frequency of abuse, maybe frequency that people go missing and are not found, like the fate of children, the fate of refugees, the fate of this. You're like, I want these, the frequencies, the wavelengths, the contributing factors, the structures that allow and contribute to the creation of these phenomena to be dissolved from the world. Okay, well, this is not an eclipse, but still, if the moon is decreasing, you can do that. Okay? It will have an effect. I can't tell you it will have, but if you create something with that, and you publish that, or a talismanic with that, and you work with that, then you might be able to do ritual work in favor of humanity, and that may or may not be successful. I don't know. 18th. Well, still within this. Venus is. Yeah, still within this aspect. With the sextile to the moon. It's still in the sextile to the moon. Okay, still that choice. This is a more tight aspect. Where the moon is separated from Neptune. This is, we have the accentuation on the conjunction of the moon and Pluto. For this Venus one, it can also be a talisman, okay? It can be a talisman for women, or for the Venusian, or for Venus that is working in harmony with Pluto, okay? With the practical Pluto, okay? For working with the plutocracy, for having legislation that supports leaking information, like WikiLeaks, for changes in legislation, for changes in the structure that support the leaking of wealth and information in favor of humanity, for transforming of the structure, all kinds of things like that you can do with this energy. Here. This is already just a sextile to Pluto. The moon is already in Aquarius. Okay, then we had the moon conjuncting Pluto. Okay, just same as what I said. So yeah, it's still within this zone. And we'll change it to 1 day now. Moon in Aquarius. Yeah, Venus is just applying to sextile Pluto. I'm ignoring this lot of fortune thingy because I don't know how to do it on a mundane level. Probably it has meaning on a mundane level, but we don't know what to do with that. Venus, this is the exact one, it's 19 February, Sunday in the Middle East. You need to check the time for your country. You can change the local settings. This is when Venus is sextile in Pluto on the 29th degree. So she in Pisces, Pluto is in Capricorn, 29th degree sextile. This one is highly sensitive, and she is applying to trine Lilith. It's very strong position of Venus. The moon is like, it's finely aspected with Mars, but it's not touching that Venus or that Lilith or that Pluto. So it's not something you can download into Talisman. Let's go here. No, here is Venus. Venus already ingresses, but within the previous, no. Yeah, let's go to wait, let's see if I can catch that. Not here, that way. The moon, I want to catch the new moon. New moon, yes. Okay. What the new moon is in the context is in Pisces and with Venus in the 29th degree sextile and Pluto in the 29th degree. This happens on 20th February. Um, we get like it's not a talismanic Venus stuff, but it's definitely a new moon with this Pluto Venus sextile that can be quite meaningful. Okay, artwork like this is a good time to create art, not yet published, but there's a new beginning, and artistic endeavors here. Um, it's an interesting chart. I'm not fond of Lilith opposite Pluto. I am fond of Pluto sextiling Venus. So this is the story for Venus in Pisces. In the beginning, she's quite isolated. So she's exalted, but she's quite isolated. You might have your own bubble of experience. Um, Again, Venus in a sign which is exalted is not a negative time. You just need to adjust your expectations as to what Venus in Pisces does. And you can go to the beginning of this video for the explanation. Depending on your house and what it represents for you and your ascendant, Venus may play out as different things, which I talked about in the beginning of this video. And strangely enough, a cat just came in and started cruising around my house. So yeah, interesting timing. This is my Venus wisdom on a Venus day. I'm not going to do the 12 ascendants here because write down in the comments if you feel like you need that. But that's my Venus in Pisces video. Yeah. Of course, if you want more from this channel, then you have to subscribe, share with people, and write a comment. So you can always come back to this video, and I made the Venus Pisces in the beginning, so you can return to this over and over again if you want general Venus Pisces and a lengthy explanation of the archetypes. Thank you. Happy Friday or Saturday or Thursday, wherever you are.